I think it has to do with the morality of the nation, too, a little bit, where they're at. But then again, it's the alcohol thing, what is worse? Yeah. I hear that comparison a lot.
And that's definitely what the recreational marijuana advocates have used, that argument.
Yeah, like get rid of alcohol. If you're going to get rid of marijuana, they're like, well, you might as well get rid of alcohol. That's the argument I've heard.
To work. All right, Emily, what about you?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. The whole alcohol argument, and this isn't even that big of a deal. It's a soft drug. It's not anything like cocaine or heroin. So I think a lot of people are just like, just legalize it and get it on, or just get on with it.
All right. Well, we've got 30 seconds. Just tell me what's the big issue today for millennials, Emily?
I don't know. I would say. A lot of millennials I've talked to are how are women going to be, treated with this next president?
All right.
Like, yeah,
all right.
For sure.
Jobs. Okay, a lot on the mind of a lot of millennials
and
a lot of Americans. All right, thank you both for joining us. John, back to you right now.
Thank you, Heather, for interesting perspective from a key voting and influential voting bloc. Well, lots of you are weighing in on this year's election on CBN News Facebook's page. Here is a look at some of those comments. James Hall writes, God, not a person, is the only hope for the nation. Dina Ayala said something similar, posting, a Christian can vote, but in the end, it's the Lord who makes the powerful decision. Regardless of who the candidates are, God can use him or her for good. Well, we want to include your comments in our continuing coverage of election 2016, so be sure to use the hashtag CBN2016 in your posts and pictures. Well, joining us now from our news set is Chief International Correspondent Gary Lane. Gary travels the world, and I'm curious about your global perspective. How is the rest of the world watching this election play out?
Well, the rest of the world, John, is very nervous. They don't know Trump. And you know the old saying, better the devil you know than the one you don't know? They do know Hillary Clinton because, remember, for about 8 years, she was First Lady. Then after that, she was a senator from New York, and then also the Secretary of State for 4 years. So the world knows Hillary Clinton. They don't really know Donald Trump more than beyond his show, his reality show, The Apprentice, and maybe some of the books that he's written. But that's about it. So they're very nervous about this.
In this past election cycle, both candidates accusing one the other of being a puppet to Vladimir Putin. How do you think the different candidates will deal with Russia's growing influence?
I think there will be a different dealing here. Donald Trump obviously has said that he believes that Putin is a very strong leader, but he also says he's one that he believes that he can work deals with, that he can talk with. And obviously he, I think, is more inclined to try to work something out on Syria and elsewhere. He probably would be a better negotiator. Hillary Clinton, I think, would continue the same policy we've seen from Barack Obama. She would oppose Russia, and it's very dangerous in Syria with the flyover, talking about a no-fly zone and so forth. The Russians have threatened to shoot down any plane that violates airspace or threatens Syrian troops. So I think a very different approach when it comes to Russia.
Gary, last question for you. Christians, of course, are deeply concerned about what happens in Israel. Looking at each of the candidates, who is more aligned with the views and the policies advancing Israel's cause in the Middle East?
Well, here's the difference. Donald Trump has said one of the first things he will do is move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and that makes a big statement there. It's saying Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. No president has done that. In addition to that, I think he has also said that he believes the Palestinians must recognize Israel's right to exist. So I think he's more in line and more in tune with Netanyahu on these things. When it comes to Hillary Clinton, she would likely continue to pursue the two-state policy, which would be separate Palestinian state and Israel. And probably some people in Israel would say she'd want to force that on Israel, and so we'll wait and see. But there are different approaches internationally on that issue, John.
Gary, always appreciate your insight.
Sure.
Thanks for joining us.
Certainly.
Well, you can follow our election reporting tonight online on Twitter, Facebook, and the CBN News channel, where we'll have live updates and analysis starting at 8 Eastern. And we'll have a special election update edition of the 700 Club at 11 Eastern on the ABC Freeform cable channel, which also will be streamed online at cbnnews.com. Well, coming up, our team in the Washington Bureau examines the upstart independent candidate who's shaking up the race in Utah right after this.
Caring for your elderly loved one means protecting their skin, because as we age, our skin becomes fragile. It's vulnerable to painful rashes and sores, but everyday soaps and lotions could be damaging. You need Wellmedics Home Care Pro, hospital-grade products specially designed for fragile skin care at home. Our unique formulas clean, protect, and repair fragile skin, making caring for your loved one at home just a little easier. Choose the regimen trusted by nurses. Wellmedics Home Care Pro.
Do you worry about your mom or dad living alone? I know I did. Hi, I'm Joan London, and there's a free service you need to know about. It's called A Place for Mom. They're the nation's largest senior living referral service, and they can help you find the right senior care fast.
Mom and Dad, we found this place. It's great. You can afford it. You're going to love it. Let's go look at it.
A Place for Mom offers free one-on-one advice from local advisors and a personalized list of senior living communities you can visit. Believe me, I know, I've been there. Finding senior care for a parent can be difficult, but now there's a place for answers, A Place for Mom.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-469-0367. 800-469-0367. Call 800-469-0367 today.
Caring for your elderly loved one means protecting their skin, because as we age, our skin becomes fragile. It's vulnerable to painful rashes and sores, but everyday soaps and lotions could be damaging. You need Wellmedics Home Care Pro, hospital-grade products specially designed for fragile skin care at home. Our unique formulas clean, protect, and repair fragile skin, making caring for your loved one at home just a little easier. Choose the regimen trusted by nurses. Wellmedics Home Care Pro.
And welcome to our nation's capital. I'm Jenna Bratter, live in the CBN News DC Bureau. We are rolling ahead with our full coverage of what is sure to be an electric election. As Americans are making their way to the polls, and many voters are still grappling with the idea of casting their votes for two very unpopular candidates, many have decided they just cannot do it. They cannot hold their noses and vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, and are instead casting their votes for the third-party candidates. Now, we got to meet one of those candidates here in D.C. Evan McMullin is the independent candidate for president. McMullin is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a former CIA operative. He has dubbed himself as the one true conservative in this race, and he got a real shot in Utah. White House reporter Jennifer Wishon got a chance to interview McMullin and find out a little bit about what some are calling the conscious alternative.
You say that you're standing up to run for president because it's never too late to do the right thing. What does that mean?
It means that the American people, I believe, have been given two terrible options in our major party candidates, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I think are unfit for the responsibilities they seek. Someone needed to stand up for values that I think are just absolutely core to what our country is and to its prosperity and its strength. That wasn't happening. I hoped someone else would step forward. I learned that that wasn't going to happen and ultimately decided that I needed to go ahead and do it.
You're conservative, right?
I am.
So you consider yourself a Republican?
I consider myself a conservative. First, I'm an American. I love this question because I love to make this point. I am an American first. Then I'm a conservative. Then I think about party.
When did you decide that you couldn't support Donald Trump?
First of all, I mean, this is a man who I think who wants to divide our country rather than unify it. We're weaker from an economic perspective and from a national security perspective when we're divided. He is preaching intolerance. He's preaching religious bigotry, ethnic bigotry, all of these things that I feel threaten this country and threaten people who are vulnerable, I feel, in this day and age, to abuses of their rights and their freedoms. Religious liberty is a key one. I come from a background, I was raised in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a Mormon, and we have a history of being persecuted, and we're sensitive to that. I cannot stand by and let any person who's a step away from the presidency take control of this country, because I believe that somebody like him would persecute people of all faiths, including Christian faiths.
What do you think is the biggest issue facing America, and how would you tackle it as president?
This country needs to be unified. We've been divided for too long. This isn't just a nice thing that I'm saying. I sincerely believe that our national security and our prosperity is tangibly damaged by the divisive rhetoric of Donald Trump and by the divisive policies of Hillary Clinton. We need unifying leadership. Underneath that macro problem, I believe we have a handful of others that are very serious. National security is one. Getting Americans back to work. We need this economy to be one of opportunity for all Americans at every level in the socioeconomic range. And then the last one is government reform. We have a government that believes it's unaccountable to the American people. It's infringing upon our rights across the country. It's too centralized here in Washington. More power needs to be rightfully returned to the American people's representatives in Congress as well as to the states.
And that was Evan McMullin, the independent candidate for president, shaking things up in Utah. Our chief political correspondent, David Brody, joins me now here. And David, what are your thoughts on McMullin? Does he have a shot?
No. Let me get right to the bottom line. No, he doesn't really have a shot. He's close. He's close in Utah. He'll do well, maybe potentially a little bit better in New Mexico and some other places. But look, I mean, he's a regional candidate. And it kind of goes to what Mike Pence has said. Matter of fact, I know you and I have been on the road quite a bit. And what Mike Pence says is it's time for Republicans to come home. So I think ultimately that's what's probably going to end up happening, and he'll probably fall a little bit short. Will he have made a difference in Utah? Yes. Does it bode well for his future politically? Sure. But I just don't see him pulling it off in Utah.
You know, it seems like a lot of conservatives voting for him are seeking an alternative because many are really turned off by the nominee. Do you think that he is a reasonable alternative?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been reasonable in his approach. I mean, he's basically said that Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton just are not simply the folks that are capable to lead this country. And so he's played to that never Trump movement, if you will. But it's been difficult for him to gain traction. And so, you know, ultimately at the end of all of this, you know, that can only take you so far. And look, we're run by two political parties in this country, two major political parties. And a third party candidate really isn't going to have much of a chance. And so here we are with Evan McMullin, who just doesn't have really the money or a full message to take to the voters.
And there are some Republicans who have decided to completely buck the trend. Rumors that President Bush 41 will vote for Hillary Clinton. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, we've heard some of this, and it's been out there for a couple of months. There is a sense that some, if not many, of the Bush clan has voted for Hillary Clinton. As a matter of fact, we have a late report coming from Rush Limbaugh, actually, talking about this specifically, saying that he has heard that George W. Bush, Bush 43, and his wife Laura voted for Hillary Clinton today. Now, that's from RushLimbaugh.com. That's what Rush Limbaugh is reporting. We can't verify it here. But I will say this, that there is clearly concern within the Bush campaign the Bush family. And I think that has to do with that political establishment. I mean, they're kind of old school political establishment versus what Trump is doing, which is something completely different.
John Kasich, meantime, voting for John McCain. What does that mean for Kasich when you compare him to Ted Cruz, who eventually said he was voting for Trump? Does sticking to your guns help or hurt Cruz or Kasich in the future?
Well, that's a good question. Look, I think with Kasich, he's such a curmudgeon. You know, he's such a guy that just is going to say what he's going to say. He's obviously older than Ted Cruz, and he's a popular governor who feels like he can say whatever he wants. And he doesn't necessarily have any skin in the game. I mean, he ran for president, but I think he's pretty much done at this point. Ted Cruz, on the other hand, I think it's important that he gets behind Trump, or he felt it was important to get behind Trump because he knows he could be primaried in 2018 when he's up to run for U.S. Senate again. What do I mean by that? Is that the Donald Trump folks in Texas, those supporters, were going to come after Cruz if he didn't get behind Trump now. So I think he realized that his only ticket to the White House was in 2020, but he couldn't get to the White House if he's not a U.S. Senator. So that's why he had to get behind Trump. It was an interesting political play.
Yeah, that team spirit, huh?
Yeah, team spirit. Yeah, rah, rah.
Rah, rah. All right, David Brody, thank you very much.
Jen.
On a lighter note, there have been a lot of great moments from the campaign trail. We want to share one of those moments as CBN News photographer Dennis Pecoraru shares one of his favorites.
So I was editing, and I was pulled from editing. I don't really know what's going on. I'm running to the studio. This guy's coming over. He's by himself. I think he had like 1 or 2 handlers, but they were somewhere. And I was basically like, who are you? You know, do you have do you have an interview here? He's like, yeah. And so he was extending his hand, trying to shake it, but I was kind of, my mind was somewhere else. I was just editing, and so it was kind of a delay, like, then I extended my hand to shake, so it was kind of awkward. And then we finally shook hands. I'm like, well, sit over here. Somebody's going to be right with you. And turns out he runs for president, so I think that was funny.
And Dennis, getting to know Evan McMullin. There are a lot of third-party candidates, as we've seen, and a lot of people writing in their candidates. And we know we've gotten, of course, the campaign. We want to pop the question to you, our viewer. Did you consider voting for any of the third-party candidates, whether it was Evan McMullin or somebody else? If so, why? Go over to CBN News, our Facebook page, and join the conversation. We would love to hear from you. All right, we are going to take a short break, but keep it here. We have much more after this.
Attention, pain sufferers. If you have back, knee, foot, wrist, neck, or even joint pain caused by arthritis, then you need to call the number on your screen and talk to Pain Relief Solutions. Our friendly agents will tell you about your options for pain relief. If you have Medicare or private insurance, we have programs that may cover the supplies you need to get pain relief at little or no cost to you. Call right now so you can get your pain relief solutions fast. It's just that simple. The call is free, the information is free, and the suppliers will bill your insurance company for free. They do all the paperwork and deal with your insurance company and even provide free shipping and delivery. Get the pain relief solutions you need at little or no cost to you. We're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help you with your pain relief needs. Please have your insurance card handy for faster service and call the number on your screen now.
Call 800-233-9890. That's 800-233-9890. Call now.
Attention! Are you stuck in student loan debt? If you have $10,000 or more in federal student loans and are having trouble making the payments, call now for a special free offer. Student Services wants to give you free information on how to possibly cut your student loan payment in half, or in some cases, have your student loan completely wiped clean. Just imagine your life with no more student loan payments. If you're late or even in default on your student loan payments, call now for a special free offer. The call is free. The information is free, and there's no obligation, just real relief from the financial burden of student loans. Student Services can help stop tax garnishments and release cosigners, and has helped many people struggling with their student loan payments. Call now to discover the secrets to possibly having your student loans completely written off. Student loan debt relief is one free phone call away. Don't waste another day struggling in student loan debt. Call now for student loan debt relief.
Welcome back to our special election edition of CBN News. Well, we've heard about all these different important demographic groups, whether they're millennial voters, minority voters. Perhaps more prominent than any other group is women voters. And for more on that topic, we head back to Heather Sells in Studio 9 for her panel.
Thanks a lot, John. It really is interesting. One of the key voter blocks is women, and this election season, they have taken front and center with a scandal in October over lewd comments that Donald Trump made about women back in 2005. Regardless of the scandal, the female vote is coveted, always is. And here right now to talk about it is about this election and what's going on is CBN's medical reporter, Lori Johnson, and managing editor Andrea Garrett. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. So it's a really curious dynamic because, of course, if Hillary Clinton wins, she will be the first women president our country has ever had. But you don't hear her talking a lot about that, and you don't seem to hear women talking about that a lot. So I'm just curious, what is your take, Lori?
Well, I think that a lot of the time her surrogates are doing it for her. The most notable comment that I remember hearing in this election cycle was Madeleine Albright, the first female Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton's predecessor, at one of Hillary Clinton's campaign rallies saying, there's a special place in hell for women who don't support each other, who don't help each other out. And so there is sort of that undercurrent. I think there is a lot of pressure within the female community for women to vote for Hillary Clinton. And I really think that it's something that's been percolating for 8 years. We had the primary between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton in 2008, and voters had the choice then, do we nominate the first black or the first woman? Well, let's go with the black, and next time it'll be the woman. So I think that's always been in the background all along.
Right, right. Andrea?
Well, I think that some women feel that way, that they want to support the first woman president. And I hear a lot of Democrat women saying that, but I think a lot of women on the other side vote for the issues, and they care about the candidate, male or female. And I think a lot of us would love to see a female candidate for president, would love to see the first woman president. We want it to be the right woman. And so I think that's got a lot to do with it, too. People, when it comes right down to it, it's the issues that matter to a lot of women, and they don't see Hillary Clinton as being the woman who furthers their own issues that are important to them.
Yeah. Well, what you're saying is going to tie in with my next question, and that is that the obstacles that Trump has with women voters. You know, he's got there's a historical record of women supporting Democratic presidential candidates. Normally, it's in the single digits. This year, according to polls, recently it seems to be in the double digits that women just the Democratic Party appeals to them a little bit more. And then you've got on top of that his attitude towards women, the comments that surfaced. So, you know, given all that, you know, I guess with what you were saying, Andrea, would really be the issues that would compel women to vote for Trump. But is that enough given his attitudes?
I think when all of that broke, that the people in general who were solidly for Donald Trump, it didn't change their minds. The people who were solidly for Hillary Clinton, it didn't change their minds. There may have been a few that were unsure, and it did sway them one way or the other. But I think that people are looking at overall, most people are looking overall at the issues, which one is going to further, is going to do the least damage to the country, which one is, and they really are polar opposites in
with
terms of their views. So I think that has played into it a lot, and a lot of the people who were so upset about what Trump said already didn't support him, didn't like him. So I think that I think the media made a big thing out of it, but I don't think the core base on either side was shaken or moved.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that Donald Trump already started out with a deficit because women generally skew Democratic, but he only exacerbated the problem. He went into the election with people perceiving him as a misogynist anyway, and then he made a lot of unforced errors during the election with some of his Twitter rants and some of the things that he said. And I think having Kellyanne Conway as his campaign manager was a win, but what he should have done was get his daughter Ivanka out on the campaign trail when that horrible mess broke in October and have her talking on his behalf as a surrogate rather than those old white guys. She hits it out of the park every time she speaks on behalf of her father, but she really hasn't been out in front and center during the campaign. And part of that's because she's had a business to run and she had a baby. But also even Melania, I think, is a good spokesperson for him. And they kind of kept her behind the scenes. That was not a good performance for her at the Republican National Convention. But she actually made a really good speech a couple weeks ago. And people were saying, why did they keep her, under wraps for so long? She could have done him some good.
Yeah, he could have had women advocating for him more. It is interesting. And I feel like the immorality goes both sides, with both candidates. There was a senator, a female senator from the Northeast, I'm forgetting her name right now, but she said recently, I wouldn't want my daughter in the room with Donald Trump or with Bill Clinton. So both candidates, I think, have issues to deal with in terms of the way they have treated women over the years. So it's going to be interesting to see. Another interesting issue is evangelical women, and we have even influential evangelical women this year talking about the election. Women like Bible study author Beth Moore and HGTV star Jen Hatmaker, who don't normally talk about politics. So I'm wondering, what has been your thinking on why evangelical women have come out talking about politics this year?
It seems like every evangelical leader, whether it's male or female, has been coming out and saying what you should never vote for Trump because of this. You should never vote for Hillary, or you should vote for Trump because of this or that. And I think they just need to be quiet, stop talking, because really these people, like you just said, Beth Moore and this Jen Hatmaker, they don't talk about politics usually, so don't talk about it now. I mean, she's a Bible teacher. Beth Moore, stick with that. Don't be trying to use your platform to sway everybody to. I'm just over it with all of them.
All right,
That's just me.
all right. That's true. I think a lot of people who shouldn't weigh into this and tell people how to vote are doing it. But hey, this is America. It's their right to, free speech. But I do think that as Christians, we need to be very discerning, because you hear Christians saying, if you're a Christian, you'll vote for him. If you're a Christian, you'll vote for her. Right. What would Jesus do?
Right. I feel like there's just been so much shaming going on. How dare you think about voting for this candidate? So it's been a really interesting campaign cycle, even just within the body of Christ, to see how other people are treating each other. But I do want to ask you on a more hopeful note. Both Hatmaker and Moore have recently blogged, and it was interesting. Moore tweeted that we have fallen madly in love with hate, and Hatmaker blogged, "The Oval Office does not affect the way we live and breathe in our 5 seconds on this earth. If anything, after this particular election, we must show up stronger, kinder, braver, and wise." And so I'm just wondering, is there that potential for women going forward to lead the way in terms of let's move this divisiveness and move beyond it?
Yeah, well, I think absolutely we have to go forward no matter who the next president is, and women will take the lead in that, just like they do in that kind of way with their families, with their friends, with their communities. So yes, I think that we have to just be positive and know that God's still in control, no matter what happens in this presidential race.
Absolutely. I agreed with the first part of her statement, which is people have fallen in love with hate. But that I disagree with the second part of her statement, where she says that who's in the Oval Office doesn't really make that much of a difference in our lives in the big picture. It really does make a big difference. But getting back to the love versus hate, I think that is where we as Christians can really be light and salt, because this is such a contentious debate, and we need to love our enemies, bless those who persecute us, and above all, show love. And it's really difficult to do when you're getting really entrenched in all the rhetoric of the campaign. And sometimes we do need to step back and remember that as Christians, we need to love everyone and pray for everyone. And in the wake of whoever wins, we need to remember that the way we respond to it, people are going to be watching us as Christians.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, it's so interesting with social media, because it has so changed the way this campaign is operated. We've never had, well, I guess we did have presidential candidates tweeting in the last campaign, but so much more.
It was so revolutionary back then.
Right. And now you have Trump 24/7 tweeting, so it's really interesting. When you think about issues that matter to women, what do you see happening in this election season in terms of what are the key issues for women? Andrea?
Well, I think for a lot of us, the pro-life issue is really important. I think women are really concerned about our health care issues and the bread and butter issues that we are facing. So I think the economy overall and the future of our country, I think we're all concerned about where we're headed as a nation.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Lori, I wanted to ask you, too, about Obamacare, because you cover that so much, and there's been the sense that it really is an important campaign issue in some respects. Trump was talking about it a lot at the end of the campaign, but then I also know people who say, it's not that big an election issue. What's your thought? Are people voting thinking about health care?
Well, actually, the Kaiser Foundation did a poll, and it actually ranked 5 out of the 5 top and the bottom of all the topics that people are most concerned about, primarily because not that many people are directly affected by Obamacare. We have 153 million people who get insurance from their employer and about 20 million people who get Obamacare. And remember, of those people who are on Obamacare who get that, we know about those soaring premiums. But really, that's only about 10% of the people who get Obamacare who are paying those premiums. Other people are subsidized. So, but a lot of people are indirectly affected, like small business owners who are being crushed by the regulations.
This is coming my way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then, of course, there are the religious elements. We saw with the Hobby Lobby case and Little Sisters of the Poor, people who are being mandated to provide the so-called abortion pill, which violates their religious liberties.
So for evangelical women, it could be more of an issue, too.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, it's going to be really interesting tonight to see how everything plays out. Thanks a lot for joining us right now. John, back to you.
Thanks, Heather. I didn't want that conversation to end. Well, Did you ever consider voting for a third-party candidate? That's the question that we posed to our social media fans. Let's take a look at some of their feedback. Ed writes, I did consider it early on in the primaries. However, I quickly realized that voting for a third party would be the equivalent of a lukewarm vote. It would be moral cowardice. And Daniel had this to say, no, because you can't shut up two crybabies by adopting a third one and calling it your favorite. Remember, we want to include your comments, no matter how colorful they are, in our continuing coverage of election 2016. Be sure to use the hashtag CBN2016 in your posts and your pictures. Well, right now, let's go back to our CBN political editor, John Waggy. John, the presidential campaign has of course, overshadowed some other important races. Can you explain how you see the Senate race unfolding? Will the Republicans maintain control of the upper chamber?
Well, John, I have them, I predicted them to hold on to the Senate. Can't be terribly confident about that pick because there are a good 7, 8 races that are close. They're real battlefields. But I've got the Republicans holding on, maybe losing 2 or 3 seats. I've got 2 because I have them taking away 1 seat in Nevada and losing 3 in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Illinois. But I'm not confident in those picks. I do think that they may hold on slightly depending on the turnout among Republicans. I think that Marco Rubio will hold on in Florida and Richard Burr will hold on in North Carolina. I'm very uncertain about the Missouri pick of Roy Blunt, who's been a long-time Washington person, and that could run him into trouble. And also 2 that I've picked against, Toomey in Pennsylvania and Ron Johnson in Wisconsin, they both made turnarounds at the end of the campaign and actually lead in some polls. So as you can see, they're all over the map. And Kelly Ayotte in Wisconsin too, or I'm sorry, in New Hampshire, looks like she might squeak it out.
John, this election, of course, has been so contentious, so no matter who wins, do you think these parties, the 2 parties, will be able to work together and govern?
No.
Simple answer?
No. I think that there's the split is reflected in the American electorate. I think that the divide is pretty deep. I don't think there'll be much coming together. There's always a slight honeymoon for the new president around inauguration time, but that ended very quickly, as we saw in 2008. And I just see more of the same at this point because those issues that are deep and divisive have not been resolved.
So you said in your short answer it's no, but what needs to be done in order for this country to come together? Because the country has to move forward.
Well, yeah, and I think that one of the things is, you know, you've already talked on the program about the anger and the hate that's been displayed lots of times on social media and everything. I think the name calling has to end for one thing. Maybe not everything being done in front of the media would be another thing that would help if you get behind closed doors and really vent your stand on the issue without calling people names at the same time. That might be of help. But the issues are very divisive. We're talking about a nuclear Iran. We're talking about an economy that's we're $20 trillion in debt almost, and a lot of people who depend on the services of the government, which keeps growing larger and larger. Those aren't things you just, you know, get together for a half hour over coffee and say, okay, well, I got a good solution to that. Entitlements, another thing. Healthcare, another thing. That's 1/6 of the economy. These are not things that are going to be solved overnight, but changing the tone would be a big step forward.
John, we've only got about 30 seconds left. I know yesterday you made the prediction. You say Trump will win the electoral votes. Do you stand by that, or do you want to make a revision?
I'm too far out on the gangplank now, John. I got to stand by that prediction, and I'll stick with it for another 10 hours or so anyway.
And what was the final tally? How did you?
270 for Trump, 268 for Clinton in the Electoral College.
All right, John, we'll see how that all plays out tonight. Political editor John Waggy, thanks for your insight.
Thanks, John.
Well, you can, of course, follow our election reporting tonight online on Twitter, Facebook, and the CBN News channel with live updates and analysis starting at 8 Eastern. We'll also have a special election update edition of the 700 Club at 11 Eastern on the ABC Freeform cable channel, which will also be streamed online at cbnnews.com. Well, up next, back to D.C. for some of the greatest hits of the 2016 campaign and why some voters may still be feeling the burn right after this.
Caring for your elderly loved one means protecting their skin, because as we age, our skin becomes fragile. It's vulnerable to painful rashes and sores, but everyday soaps and lotions could be damaging. You need Wellmedics Home Care Pro, hospital-grade products specially designed for fragile skin care at home. Our unique formulas clean, protect, and repair fragile skin, making caring for your loved one at home just a little easier. Choose the regimen trusted by nurses. Wellmedics Home Care Pro.
Now, men and women who use catheters can get a better catheter with Liberator Medical's free catheter sample pack. These new catheters are better than ever, easier to use, virtually pain-free. There's the all-new Magic 3 Go for women, the Go Anywhere catheter that provides you with control, comfort, confidence. Self-hydrating with Clean Glide technology makes it ready to go right out of the package. No water, no mess. The Polished Eyelet catheter for micro-smooth comfort, reduces friction and pain. The Closed System catheter, pre-lubricated with its own collection bag, proven to reduce UTIs. The Red Rubber catheter, available in straight and coude tip. Discreet pocket catheters for men and women. Fits in your pocket to go anywhere. Call for your free catheter sample pack with free shipping. We handle all the medical insurance billing for you. Call Liberator Medical.
1-800-499-1367. 1-800-499-1367.
Caring for your elderly loved one means protecting their skin, because as we age, our skin becomes fragile. It's vulnerable to painful rashes and sores, but everyday soaps and lotions could be damaging. You need Wellmedics Home Care Pro, hospital-grade products specially designed for fragile skin care at home. Our unique formulas clean, protect, and repair fragile skin, making caring for your loved one at home just a little easier. Choose the regimen trusted by nurses. Wellmedics Home Care Pro.
The grand prize. You're taking a live look at the White House in Washington, D.C. on what is going to be an exciting culmination to the election year. And welcome back to Washington, D.C. I'm Jenna Bratter. As Americans are heading to the polls, one key voting bloc may be a big problem for Hillary Clinton. CBN News chief political correspondent David Brody takes a look at why.
Hillary Clinton's support among black voters doesn't appear as strong as hoped. Odds are all going to depend on turnout, not necessarily turnout of Trump supporters here in North Carolina, but a lack of turnout on the other side. African Americans came out in historic levels for President Obama, but so far, early voter turnout here in North Carolina is way down, about 16% lower. Given the sizable African American population in the Tar Heel state, a significant dip would be problematic for Clinton. But Renee Boston Hill, chairman of the Pitt County African American Caucus, says enthusiasm is higher than people think.
I have worked the polls every single day since the election started. I try to spend at least a couple of hours out there. And I can say that there's been a heavy presence of the African American community here in Pitt County getting out to vote.
Another concern is possible intimidation. The NAACP is suing the state for allegedly canceling voter registration of mostly black voters. Boston Hill says her group remains focused.
Our efforts have always been to keep it moving and to get the vote, to get people to the polls and get the vote out.
Meanwhile, conservatives are working to win black voters too. This ad campaign targets black millennials, hoping to convince former Bernie Sanders supporters to board the Trump train. It's all playing out in a key battleground state that will likely determine who wins the presidency. David Brody, CBN News in Greenville, North Carolina.
The black voter turnout may be a concern for the Clinton campaign, so she is pulling out all of the stops. President Obama made a rallying speech in North Carolina, imploring voters to preserve his work and his legacy. We particularly wanted to reach out to young voters. Take a look.
And especially the young people I'm talking to right now. You know, it isn't that often where in your life you've got a chance to move history. It's not that often where you have the chance to bend the arc of history in the direction of justice. It's not that often where you know you can make a difference. This is one of those moments. Right now, you can reject the mean-spirited politics that would take us backwards. Right now, you can elect a leader who spent her entire life trying to move this country forward. Our first female president, an example for our daughters and our sons. You have a chance to shape history. Don't let that slip away.
That was President Obama addressing two key groups, young people and black voters. Now, both groups are, for varying reasons, may be hesitant to pull the lever for Clinton. Young voters overwhelmingly supported Bernie Sanders and may not be so hot for the former Secretary of State. So what do you do to combat that? You bring in Sanders himself. The Vermont senator has been hitting the trail hard for Clinton these last couple of weeks. Take a look at this one crowd in Iowa last week.
What I am asking of you is let's work as hard as we can to make sure that Donald Trump does not become our next president. And the day after, let us begin to work to transform this country to make us into the kind of nation that you and I know we can become.
And despite Bernie Sanders' efforts, it seems like many millennials are still feeling the burn. Check out this Bernie Sanders supporter at a Hillary Clinton campaign rally, also in Iowa.
The only people who can really trust Hillary are Goldman Sachs. Citigroup can trust Hillary. The military-industrial complex can trust Hillary. Her good friend Henry Kissinger can trust Hillary. She is so trapped in the world of the elite that she has completely lost grip of what it's like to be an average person. She doesn't care. Voting for another lesser of two evils, there's no point.
And it seems like some millennials are also having trouble hopping on board the Trump train. So how will that affect Clinton's chances? Joining us to discuss that and everything you need to know ahead of tonight's election, our CBN chief White House correspondent, Jennifer Wishon. Jennifer, the White House has pulled out a lot of stops. Clinton has pulled out a lot of stops for Clinton. How does this affect her campaign?
Well, you know, Jenna, it's clear that the vast majority of Americans, more than 60%, believe the country is moving in the wrong direction. That is under President Obama's leadership. However, the president is wildly popular. His approval rating is hovering at 56%. He's actually more popular today than he was 4 years ago when he won re-election. And on top of that, you know, his numbers are even higher among millennial voters. And despite some frustration in the African-American community that President Obama maybe hasn't used his historic presidency to do more to help them, he's still very popular with black voters. And guess what? That's who Hillary Clinton needs help with. She needs help with the Democrat base. She needs help with millennials. She needs help with black voters. Those are groups that the president is very popular with, and that's why you've been seeing him out on the campaign trail so much.
Yeah, we really have seen him out on the campaign trail a lot, Jennifer. Is this typical of most presidents, or is this kind of a rare scene?
Well, you know, you think about 2 terms, you think about 8 years. Usually after 2 terms, the president has a lot of mileage on him. A lot happens in those 8 years. You know, we saw in 2008, John McCain saw President George W. Bush as a liability in front of a war-weary electorate. We didn't see Al Gore wanting Bill Clinton to be out on the campaign trail for him. So it is rare in recent history. But again, with that popularity, and, you know, again, you also see Michelle Obama out on the campaign trail. She is very popular. These are 2 people who are seen as cool. They're seen as fresh. They're not afraid to go places that other first couples haven't gone before. We've seen the president doing interviews with YouTube stars. We've seen him doing, you know, an interview between 2 ferns. We've seen Michelle Obama driving around the drive here at the White House doing carpool karaoke with a late-night host. We've seen President Obama several times slow jamming the news with Jimmy Fallon. I mean, these are things that haven't happened before. You know, they know how to leverage pop culture to advocate the issues that are important to them. And so we're seeing that pay dividends in this election cycle. We're seeing it being used to the benefit of Hillary Clinton.
All right, Jennifer, thank you very much. Live at the White House for us. Meantime, CBN News chief political correspondent David Brody joins us now. David, you and I have been out on the campaign trail, a lot of battleground states.
Yep.
We talk a lot about enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Where do you see enthusiasm standing today for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump?
Jenna, we've seen it all the time. And can I plug our B&B?
Please.
B&B, right there. Oh, hello, B&B. That Brody and Browder, maybe not necessarily in that order, depending.
Brody and Browder.
All right, whatever,
I like it. I like it.
But look, I think, should I put a mic on? Is that what you're telling me, to put a mic on? So let me do that. Anyhow, I got to put a mic on.
Yeah, you know, we've seen a lot of enthusiasm. We've kind of been all over the country. Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, really all over. And one thing we've seen a lot, Hillary Clinton certainly has the organization that Donald Trump does not have. She has the numbers on the ground. Donald Trump, on the other hand, he has enthusiasm. Now, he has supporters who will be with him until the end. And I think that's really kind of showing in the turnout today from what we've seen so far. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think so. We've seen it today unfold, and we saw it, you know, in Florida where, before we get to Florida, let me talk about what we saw in Pennsylvania, because we were rolling through Pennsylvania into Ohio. And we remember we talked to that toll booth collector.
That's right.
Yeah, and we asked him, we said, who are you going to vote for? And we had it on camera and everything. And he said, well, I'm going for Clinton. We said, why Clinton? He goes, I'm going for the less crazy of the two.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a little bit about that mentality this time around. Even people that are supporting Trump, grudgingly supporting Trump, realizes that there's a bit of an unhinged quality to him, and there's a bit of immorality to go around with her. And so this is the toll collector really kind of summed it up. And then I know you in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
that was interesting.
In Johnstown, we were at the Heyday Diner.
Hey.
And talked to some folks there. We talked to the manager. And interesting, you know, he was telling us he was undecided at the time. This is about a week ago, a little less than a week ago. He was undecided. And he was telling us most of the people who come into his shop, into his restaurant, are Trump supporters. Now, this is a part of the country. This is Western Pennsylvania, typically a Democratic part of the state. But everywhere we went, we saw Trump signs, Pence signs, really in every other yard. So they're enthused for him there. Then we went across town to the Perch Bistro, and kind of the opposite. We talked to a woman working there, and she said, well, if I had to vote, I guess I would vote for Hillary. But she kind of, I think, really captured what a lot of people are feeling is, yeah, if I have time and it's not too inconvenient on election day, I'll show up and vote for Hillary.
Right, if there's not something good on television or something.
Right.
But that's interesting, because that's Hillary Clinton's problem in a nutshell, which is that she needs those voters that are like, yeah, I'm kind of with her. I stand with her, kind of. She needs those folks to actually get out and vote, but those are soft votes, and there's no way to tell if they're actually going to show up. Tell me a little bit, Mike Pence. So that we've been running some clips. What was that like to be on Pence's bus? It was actually kind of neat, all four of us being with Karen Pence. Tell me a little bit about that.
So this was in North Carolina a few days ago. Mike Pence was making a stop there. North Carolina, obviously, possibly the most important state
you can make that
this time around. Yeah, the argument could be made. But he was there, and so we spoke with him, and actually we were set up for an interview in this building, and his campaign manager, Mark Lauder, said, hey, do you want to do this interview on the bus? So, of course, we said, we'd love to.
Yeah, I believe my word was duh.
Right. Why? You know, who wouldn't? So we did that, talked to him. I also got to speak with his wife. Now, this was really neat because Karen Pence, First Lady of Indiana, she hasn't been out on the campaign trail too heavily, or at least she hasn't been getting a lot of media coverage. She doesn't do a lot of interviews. So it was neat to get to sit down with her, and we asked them about what people could be praying for them about. And Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, Mike Pence gave a really good answer, you know, talking about how it's really important for the families. You know, the families are with us. You know, everybody talks about Mike Pence or Donald Trump and what we can pray for them about, but he really wanted prayer for his family or so. So I think that was really important. And then Karen Pence just said, look, we feel the power of prayer. Love it.
Power of prayer. All right, thank you, David. Well, that's it for now. Join us tonight right here for wall-to-wall coverage starting at 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. on EST on Freeform. I am Jenna Browder alongside David Brody, B&B in Washington, D.C. Happy voting, everybody.